Hi everybody, Eugene Hough with the Legacy Marker Program. It's been, I think, probably a couple months since we've had an interview opportunity here with Mainline TV, and thanks again to Kevin and the studio, the board, for supporting the Legacy Marker Program for many years, and even before that on some other platforms. And again, I think we encourage people in the general viewing community to see these videos related to the Legacy Marker Program by going to Mainline TV, Legacy Marker Program YouTube, and you'll see a lot of interesting interviews and film footage that relates to the Chester Anthology Project, which I'm going to be speaking more about today. It's a project that's received funding from the Daughters of American Revolution, the Pennsylvania chapter, State Regent Margaret Fitch, and a wonderful group of team members who recognize the preservation restoration of the John Morton Old Swedes St. Paul's Parish Cemetery as something very important. Obviously, with the 250th coming forward, John Morton, signer of the Declaration of Independence, a historically significant city, probably the oldest Pennsylvania cemetery, but dealing with some hard economic times. But Chester has going through ebbs and flows, and if you deal with a community, it goes back to the latter part of the 1690s and evolving today. It's a story worth telling, and that's part of the Chester Anthology Project. I'm very pleased to have Nate Cummin sitting with me today, and Nate's going to give me his full title. I know he's a photographer and involved with film, but I had a chance to meet him. And in my world, in cemeteries, because I don't get a chance to interface in the general public, I'm usually out in the field somewhere. Anytime I have an opportunity to meet somebody and hear their story, you never know how that plays out, and it could happen to any of us. So I was at a church service with the unit I serve with, the Philadelphia Light Horse at St. Mark's in Philadelphia. Beautiful church, by the way. And at that ceremony, and I was in colonial kit because I was trying to promote the project. And our unit, actually, the troop went back to 1774. So there's a lot of reasonings for why I'm passionate. But I looked at the back side of the room, and there was a gentleman standing there, which happened to be Nate, who was had a wonderful camera, filming camera, I guess video camera, and then also a very nice actual digital camera. And automatically my spider senses went off because, wow, it's so hard to find people that do this. And this is something that I've shared with Kevin, who knows this world and is very good and helped out the program. But I said, wow, maybe this guy might be interested in supporting our project. And so it happened to be that his father had basically been my first sergeant in the 1st City Troop. And so we spoke briefly. He said, that's my son. So I went over and introduced myself and briefly just said, look, if there's an opportunity, let's get together, talk on email, and see if there's an opportunity. And again, his father's name is Bevan, and Alix, his mother's, Alix, who is a DAR member, I believe. Mm-hmm. And so great friends. I've known them for over 30 years. So it was opportune. And Nate's father said, yeah, absolutely, you should encourage my son. So I felt that was a good opportunity. So we did communicate, and just by emails, we started the conversation, and I asked Nate to send me some background information. So instead of putting your CV up on the board, I thought, why don't you give a little bit of background to everybody about yourself and be relaxed and let it fly.
Absolutely. So my name's Nate Cummin. I graduated from Full Sail University with a bachelor's in film cinematography. And I have to say that for a while I actually didn't know kind of where I wanted to go in life. And I think that's important for people to know, is that they don't have to know their path. I had a lot of sort of insights of my potential career. Architecture, maybe the military. I realized that all of those derived from a certain type of media. And so I wanted to take that on and be the next level of inspiration for somebody to create something for others to view. I really get enjoyment just seeing others laugh, cry, at all types of emotions when they view something that I've created. Mm-hmm. The amount of work that goes into creating even a small short film is, astronomical. People don't think about all the stuff that gets put into film. They just like to turn on, and I don't want to sound rude, they just like to turn on their TV. And so coming to this project, it's phenomenal. Like I love documentary work. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons that I wanted to get into the film world is that it provides an opportunity to give voices to those unheard. You get to really experience life doing documentaries. One of my favorite genres in movies is nonfiction, and the reason I love it so much is because that is life on the big screen right there. And so I just think that coming to this project is very important. I don't want to answer any questions before you get the opportunity to ask them.
Well, it's all good. I think, and again, I'm just getting to know you, and mm-hmm. Kevin. Just on a side note, we're hoping through this conversation, because that's what's neat about this project, the Anthology Project, the people and the times. But there are various entities that we feel can be a part of this, because we really need various professionals and insights, students, professionals, to help with the project, not only on the boots on the ground per se, but ancillary-wise, so the story can be told. So obviously public media is very important. Mm-hmm. And instrumentally, again, I had shared with many people numerous times, we had hoped to have a structured social media platform to share what we were doing. And the initial individual who was very supportive of the program was not able to step forward to the degree he wanted to, even though he's very tech savvy, because he works for the UNESCO and the United Nations, and his obligations were growing. So we had a lapse, even though he was going to do that for free. And though we've had some people step forward through the DAR to send out marketing to newspapers and spotlights and some coverage on site with a local TV station, there were a lot of missing pieces, and that's where I was extremely thankful to have Kevin step forward, who I've known for years, to another phase of a project, and he felt it was certainly viable, and it certainly benefits the general community. So in meeting you, obviously realizing we need people to step forward, I wasn't sure if you would be interested or not. Before I jump into the next piece, we were driving, because I can't drive right now because of a foot injury, so I was very appreciative of you take me to a few places, gave us a chance to talk. You mentioned to me, because we were talking about filming and expressions, that you are learning Japanese. Hi. And you're also following animation and animation. There's two different pieces.
Yes.
Without going to great detail, because we only have so much time, why is that important to you? How do you play into your work and possibly ours?
Well, so animation is animation around the globe. Animation specifically comes from Japan. It's that small little difference, but like I said, it deals with emotion. And in anime, the stories are real, the problems are real, mm-hmm. Your world is limitless. And so it just allows the creator to dive into the most creative output that they can. Mm-hmm. Why it's important to my world, I mean, I just don't think you can look at film without looking at anime. Any source of, all the sources of media you have to give some note to.
Where can people see that format you're talking about?
Well, a lot of animes are offered on different streaming services, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime.
Okay.
The one that I specifically use is called Crunchyroll, because they offer the dubbed version, they offer the subbed version. When you go to regular streaming services, you'll find dubbed, meaning it's English voices.
Okay.
I just appreciate listening to the Japanese language more. As I'm trying to learn it, I want to get to recognize the phonetic sounds. To me, just watching dubbed anime, it feels there's something missing. The emotions aren't entirely there. Okay. I don't know what how else to explain it. But I really have only just become a big fan of the subject media. So I'm kind of lacking on how to continue about the question. I apologize.
Well, no, I think what's interesting, though, we were, and we're going to go into a little bit of this dynamic of interviewing and filming. I'm not a professional cinematographer. I'm oftentimes giving presentations in the field, and some of the things we're going to highlight in a little bit is some of the challenges that we are faced with in the field, where there's a proper way of doing filming and interviewing, and but bringing that character or that individual out as I'm interviewing you to share their story. And one of the things that was I mentioned briefly is that we have taken the opportunity, and we'd like to do more, to have testimonials, particularly from students, because they're venturing into the world. And there's a side note, one of the young ladies, there were 3 young girls that were interested in women who lost children at a young age, and we had a chance to interview, and the facial expressions, and at the same time, how do you prepare that student in terms of kids today will text, or they can, you hear about bullying or things like that, and there's the negative things, but then public speaking and sharing your feelings or whatever. So I was asking you, that reminds me when I was a teenager watching some of these Japanese-based animation platform shows, I always was amazed. It was like the mouths would be, and the eyes would just have this sort of gleaming, sort of accentuated expression, but that would be in line with that aspect of the animation where it's an expression featuring that conveys a message, and that would only happen unless it's like the earlier show Clutch Cargo, where the lips just move like this, but they have come a long way. So I was fascinated by that, and I think that I'm hoping which I believe you are, going to get involved with this program to an extent. People are going to ask you about that, and I want you to share not only some of those tie-ins, because they themselves are trying to figure out what to do. I'm going to ask Kevin to share a couple things, some clips, and we went down for a scene there. We had an opportunity with Drexel Newman Academy, and it was really done on the fly. Kevin, fortunately, was there, and one of the challenges was I was going around to the different students trying to explain what we were going to do, which was basically select a monument and at some point write a letter back to that person telling about yourself. And the goal would be 10 years from now, that student would receive a letter that they wrote, which I think is like a little time capsule.
Right.
Kevin was very supportive, because I would say, can you go over there? Can you go over there? And we had people in the way and moving around. So as a finished product, and I was speaking with you and our audience, that if I really wanted to promote the value of engaging students and why that's important, the premise of doing that in the field and getting their stories was important, but it could have been orchestrated and thought out with more planning, and we just didn't have the time. So I'm pleased on one level we got it done, but we need to go better. What are some of your thoughts in terms of your training, in terms of the interviewing process?
Well, organization is a huge piece. And in terms of the interview process, you always want to make sure that both parties know what the subject is of the interview is about, so that way your interviewee is able to kind of think maybe of some answers beforehand before you actually start to answer the questions. I had another note that I had just wanted to say, but it doesn't entirely answer your question.
Feel free, just throw it in there.
So, the reason I find such importance in this project and why I think we should get Kanasoga students involved is because Pennsylvania is such a rich area with history, and there so many roots throughout the state. Myself, I have roots that probably tie back to original settlers, and I still have not gotten, you know, the full research of it because it's so much. I have family members who their names are engraved in churches here in Pennsylvania because, you know, just because they were donors, they helped that church get built, and now it's a long-standing piece of history. Mm-hmm. And I see the value in keeping these historical sites alive. I get this. This quote comes from a movie, Monuments Men. If you have not seen it, it's a phenomenal movie. But they say in that movie that if, you know, a person's art, and really just to put any word in there, if a person's art, if their infrastructures, you know, writings, whatever, if that disappears from time, it's if they never existed at all. And as you've discovered with these gravestones, a lot of them are in rough shape and hardly legible. So the story feels like it is disappearing, and so you want to hold on to that. You want to tell it for future generations, so that they can be amazed with, you know, what was in the past and where we are now.
I think in the tie-in challenge and everything you're saying, and a lot of people would resonate with that, but the challenge also in, let's say, for instance, Chester, primarily a community color, it's had various populations, more prominent than other, just over time, ebbs and flows. When I work in the Black community, and I've worked with genealogists, the big challenge is that the audience is such these kids may not have the tracing family lineage-wise, record-wise, because as some genealogists say, they get to the point and there's a wall, and you can maybe go beyond that. I think there's really neat things through ancestry, based like the DNA thing, because there's all things that open. But I do believe what you're sharing, and I believe in as well, can resonate with basically anybody, but it has to be a way where we can convey that. For instance, well, who are your parents? Do you have any photographs and documents? And where are they from? And why is this important? What we're doing here, how will it help your family or your connections? And I think that way it's not just the early pre-colonial, colonial settlers that came in, but it's a recognition of the indigenous people in the area, Lenape, and the challenges that they faced in many levels. And we well know, I think that film Flowers of the Moon, which is just, and the Trail of Tears. And with all those challenges, and as we well know, history is there's incredible success stories where you had people that you never expect were helping and working with people, and it didn't matter who they were, from both sides, and doing the right thing. And so we're trying to deal with a city that's under a lot of duress, a lot of stories and challenges. And we've discussed earlier, and with Kevin, that people are interested in our country's history. Not only locally, they're learning more about it, that we need more of that, but you have a lot of people from different parts of the country and abroad interested in this country's history. If they're going to learn about our history, this project's really very, very powerful. But the challenge being is a platform to be able to see things. Right now, as we well know, it basically for any major video pieces, outstanding of a clip that was done by Channel 10 when they came out for the day of service, which was great. They spent part of the day there, but the final clip was maybe 5-6 minutes long. Well done, and great coverage, some interviews and whatnot. But if somebody wanted more information, or maybe that link goes down, what happens? That is why through this project, more people are asking, well, how do I have access to the photographs? And I said, well, we've seen the files, but where is this? And how is it organized in such a way where I can access it or share it with my students or somebody who's interested in early American history? We have to think in terms of who is going to be subscribing to not only this product, but the overall piece of something that can really complement any number of audiences. So it's sort of not a pilot project, but it really is, because we well know with all the technology out there and cell phones and things like that, we're being bombarded with things. but you love the individual. A child or adult says, wow, that's really cool. I really enjoyed that experience, and I want to tell my friends. We don't have somebody there to capture that moment, to interview or capture it, or have the capability to plan ahead. And sort of running on the ground and learning at this level and getting advisement from Kevin on things, and certainly helping in so many ways. That's why it's extremely exciting. So you're getting some pieces here, and it's been very refreshing from the standpoint of some of the things we're having to do. We talked a little bit about, I mentioned about the initial interviews that were conducted with the city, and we're hoping to have them finally edited because they're important. My challenge is people want to know, where did the project start? Where are we now? And then before that, what was going on in Chester? There are a lot of things we have to fill in the gaps. So we have to broaden our support network. We talked a little bit earlier where you clarified you're really not a website developer or a marketer. Explain, if you can, put it in perspective, if somebody was asking the difference about what you could do versus somebody who is a marketing social media person.
Well, I guess the best way to put it is both are behind the scenes. So the work that I do is behind the scenes here, right? I like to be behind the cameras in the studio where Kevin is right now. And whereas a website, the behind the scenes that someone does there, sorry, I'm just trying to figure this out. I don't know. I guess it's.
What would you bring to the platform program-wise? Because again, Kevin is not per se, he has a camera and goes out there. But
right.
Your skills, we're going over, you have your camera and you have a media platform. So you need skills in terms of creating that platform. How would that be something that you could do?
So I guess, all right, engaging social platforms is the key step. You want to be able to bring in as many crowds as possible. So making your website, your social media platform just kind of easy to access and scroll through is very helpful.
I think the importance piece is recognizing that you did look at a lot of the files and you saw the photographs, and you recognize that if you look at a timeline right now with everything there's no way really to discern, other you can say, wow, that looks a lot different than it did 6 months ago.
Okay.
So we're into this about 15 months right now, and but also thinking out loud, and we're not trying to get all the answers. We're trying to interface with the benefits of mainline TV. We're trying to figure out how we can market this on a broader scale, and there's obviously with more interest from schools stepping forward, and there's a training component, which I've spoken to Kevin, and you're aware of this as well, that our hope is that you would be comfortable working around students.
Absolutely.
And that's absolutely important along those lines. And the main thing, understanding that I get long-winded here, and I know I only gave you a little bit of time, and I'm hoping Kevin showed some of the clips. We just had a clip from 15 minutes ago that was filmed 15 months ago. I forgot about it. It was a B component of interviews, and it turned out in that B clip, and I didn't realize it I had met Christy Logan, whose family is buried there. The stone I selected to do a demonstration was hers, and it was after the program started, I contacted Christy again, and the whole process started again. As you well know, you've been in communication with her. So again, we're dealing with 300-plus-year-old cemetery, and in a short period of time, knowing you for probably 4 months, it is a whirlwind, per se, of things happening. And what I'd like to do, I'm going to bring you back for the interview and talk some more. I know Kevin's showing some clips. I think the main thing was to introduce you. And we only have about 3 minutes, but outside of all the things you shared, and there's more to share, tell me about your interest in chess.
In chess? It's a little funny story. I had a family friend tried to teach me when I was very young, and before I continue on with this chess story, it's one thing I had in my mind is that when I was young, looking at all this historical stuff, I kind of didn't think any mind of it because I was young. But I think creating engaging enough platforms for all types of groups is a huge benefit.
Perfect.
Because now as I look back at some of the stuff I looked at as a kid, I have more amazement towards it and a better understanding of why such is important. But to continue on with chess, so my family friend tried to teach me when I was young and I didn't understand anything. Fast forward a number of years, my roommate gets a chess set, and I remember all those lessons that I had, and so I said, okay, I'm going to beat this man. I'm going to sit down one day and be like, today's the day that I take you down. Come to find out that he was the vice president for the FIDE National Chess Committee for 15, 20 years. So I am never going to beat this man because he has lived and breathed chess for, the last however many years. Mm-hmm. But I think what chess has brought is just an understanding of a way to look at things. Sure. In the game, you want to make sure that your king is protected, your most valuable resources are protected. You want to build a structured wall of pawns, making sure that you have a set game plan for how you're going to go about your task. So you can take the essences of chess and apply them to other areas of life.
That's exactly where I'm getting at.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as well, chess is it's great because anybody can do it. Anybody can play it. You can pick it up at any age, and you may lose a number of games at first, but eventually you'll get the knack of it, and it'll feel like running water.
It's strategic from the standpoint, and I'm not a chess person, but you indicated, I remember, and we're going to go over a little bit just because I'm fascinated by this, that you indicated there are different segments where you can do, a 10-minute game limit, or you could break it down, and then you told me about this incredible thing under a minute, I guess,
yes, per se. Bullet chess.
So I'm relating this project because the chess thing stuck in my mind because of the strategic, and it's almost like I love the book on the art of war because it doesn't matter who you are. There's well thought out components to life. Whether you're a pauper or a king, you really need to, as an individual, to have a moral foundation, understand the dynamics around you, and with that you can be successful. And I think that's what we're trying to do with this project, and there's a chess component. We have a lot of players involved, and so I was fascinated by that, and maybe we can incorporate. I know that at Central Park, my friend goes there, and they have all these pickup games there, and they're little kids and older people, which is great. And nobody's yelling or pointing fingers. They're quiet and they're focusing, which is good. With this information coming forward, and we spoke a little bit about this earlier, and I'm going to finish very quickly. That with all the photographs and documentation, we're speaking to some other people. We want to create a narrative along with the chronology, possibly a 6-minute film, which would give a profile of the history of that region, indigenous people, Lenape, the Delaware River, the environmental, the estuaries, how Chester evolved. And obviously the cemetery comes into play, but then moving forward to present time, World War II, the speakeasies, Baldwin Chain. That is an inclusive timeline that I think is important because people have different interests. But if I'm going to reach out to a young audience in Chester today, we want to put something real time for them to understand. But by the way, boom, that's an old cemetery. And part of that is that we're looking at some opportunities, and you and I spoke to a gentleman the other day. It turns out he's a radio announcer. And I mentioned to him that I've been reading the book here, The Statue of Liberty. And it's a wonderful book, a lot of photographs I've never seen before. But the narration of it begins with Mr. McAuliffe, James McAuliffe. And David McAuliffe, if you've ever seen his films or heard his voice, there's just something very timeless with it. So we're looking to have try to find that person there, but we're also going to try to put together with some people, including some DAR members and local people in Chester, to put together a a well thought out historical narrative that can be done for a short film, which is going to require photographs, editing, but with the 250th, we have some time, but we have a huge opportunity here, and with everything we've done, and with everything that else has been done, we have an opportunity to incorporate, but to create platforms with a plethora of information that future years where people will have access to. So I'm going to have you back, and it's amazing. We've gone over 33 minutes. I don't know if it seems like 33 minutes, but it flies. Just some closing thoughts from you, because I'm going to get you back.
Well, I would love to be back. I feel like I've touched over everything, but I guess I'll just reiterate, it's just the importance of keeping these historical, stories, infrastructures, pieces of art, everything, we want to keep that alive from our past. And so that way future generations can learn, can grow from what we've discovered, and then even connect in many ways. And so, yeah, that's really all I have to say.
You're a young guy, just like Kevin, and so you speak to a grouping of people, not only my age, but people in your age, and there are younger people out there that are interested in this too. So I use the word disciples, or these individuals, the people we work with, can act as mentors to mentees and bring them into the fold. So it's exciting. We're asking people out in the general audience to understand the DAR is supporting this project, and as a nonprofit, they would love some support. But most importantly, I want to thank Mainline TV and Kevin through providing this platform for us to share the story, and without it, we would not be where we are now. Thank you very much for joining us.
ありがとうございます。